Yes.
Okay. So, welcome folks to the CEG C-Level Connect series. Today is program number 40. Today is Sunday, December the 1st, 2024, 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Just a few words about CEG Connect for people who don't know. CEG Connect is a private online platform that I created in 2021 to help our alumni, students, faculty, and all CEG stakeholders to network, provide a platform for them to connect and be able to interact and benefit from each other's experience and expertise. So we have a website, you can go and look up cegconnect.com. About the CEG Connect series program we are doing today, it's a 1 hour online video podcast with one successful CEG alumni guest speaker every month, usually at the last weekend of the month, Saturday or Sunday of the month. This is a 40th month in succession. We haven't missed one single month since August 2021. I try to get my guest speakers from a diverse pool of alumni, men and women, India, overseas, corporate executives, academic leaders, startup founders, bureaucrats, investors and mentors, venture capitalists, angel investors, sports people. Basically, trying to find different industries, different backgrounds, different geography, different personalities, and different expertise. Uh, Again, as I said, the program is scheduled for the last weekend of every month. It's open for all CEG alumni and CEG students, as well as faculty. We do record these sessions. The recording is available in our free YouTube channel at CEG Connect. And of course, you can visit our website for information anytime. In addition to this program, under the CEG Connect umbrella, we also conduct other initiatives. One of them is a CEG Field Insights program. This is a quarterly online session. Again, we select a CEG alumni industry expert. The idea is for that person to talk about the research, employment, and startup opportunities in that particular industry which the expert is coming from. We covered quite a few industries: air transportation, electric vehicles, crypto, weather forecasting, sustainability, manufacturing. We also done sessions on AI and machine learning. We are looking to conduct more sessions. One of them I'm looking at now is cybersecurity. I'm trying to have a session in January with one of our alumni who's a very senior person in the US in the cybersecurity domain. The other program we run is a CEG Connect Startup and Entrepreneur Networking Meet. This is a physical meet that we organize in Chennai. This is done once a quarter. The next one is coming on 21st of December 2024, couple of 3 weeks from now. It will be in Chennai. We are also planning to do this networking meet in Bangalore and San Francisco. We did one in San Francisco in 2022, but we haven't done one since then. But we are planning to do one in Bangalore and San Francisco every year as well. In addition to that, the last thing is CG Connect free webinars. I do quite a lot of webinars on topics that I learn, and I want to share that knowledge with people. So I've done various seminars on angel investments, on topics on US and India, immigration, taxation, and foreign exchange management. Fairly very successful and very popular webinar. A lot of people have asked for it many, many times. Very detailed on the immigration aspects in US and India, taxation, etc. End of life planning, basically for people to understand what you need to do while you are alive and awake to document so that people can make use of it when you're not there in this world. Also very popular. I've done a couple of dozen sessions on that as well. Investment opportunities in India for non-resident Indians. Return to India, people who are looking at coming back to India. I have a presentation on process opportunities and challenges for this particular process. As a psychologist and a psychotherapist, I also do webinars on emotional wellness and mental health. And finally, on other topics of interest like AI, machine learning, deep learning, etc. All that. So today's program is number 40, December 1st, 2024. Just a few guidelines for today's program. Please stay muted during the fireside chat session. Except the guest and the host, others please turn off your video. I will ask you guys to open up your video during the second half of the presentation to take a screenshot. As I said earlier, the entire session is recorded and the recording will be available on our YouTube channel. During the session, if you have any questions, please use the Slido program. Slido is an open source program. I will discuss how to use Slido in the next couple of slides. There will be periodic live polls in Slido. As a host, I can push some polls and I would like to request you to participate in the polls. During the question and answer session in the second half of the program, when your name is called, please unmute to ask your question. So today's guest speaker is Dr. Janaki Akela, CEG 1982 ECE. Janaki has a very distinguished career, done lots of great things. Currently, she is the independent director and board of directors at Sallie, Fractal, Southern Company, and Avrerq. I'll be the host. Jaitesh Kalpaka, my co-host, is unable to join today because he is dealing with some family emergency, so he will not be joining. And Partha is my tech support, who does all my recordings and technical assistance, etc. So here is the poster for today. To join Slido, you can go to any device, desktop, laptop, mobile, tablet, etc. You can go to any browser and type slido.com in the browser screen. When you type slido.com, it will bring up a Slido page, and in the Slido page, it will ask for a code. So please type in the code 8108551. That's again 8108551. Once you enter the code, you will get a screen like this. You will have two tabs, a question and answer tab and a polls tab. Please, I would request you to participate in the polls. Also, ask questions. When you type the questions, you can type the questions whenever you want, during the session or at the end of the session. Please put your name so that I can ask you to ask the question yourself by unmuting as well as opening your video, please. Okay, that's all I had. So I'm going to quickly close this one and go over to stop presenting. Okay, so Janaki, what we'll do is that the next 20 minutes, I want to hand it over to you. What we would like you to do is to talk about your journey from the time you were in CEG to where you are now. The idea being, we would like you to share your learnings, your experience, your insights, and any guidance, you advice you want to give to our younger alumni and students. Because the idea again is to transfer of knowledge and experience to people. You could do it in the context of your experience. If you want to talk about something beyond just professional, also personal, that's also fine. Some of my guests have also had anecdotal evidence from the personal life to give some messages. Completely up to you. It's a format is free format. You can tell it as a story. And at the end of the 20 minutes, I will just give you a little tinkle so that we can move on to the next part of the program. So with that, I will hand it over to you, Janaki. Thank you again for joining today.
Thank you, Vish. Thank you. It's quite amazing, the CEG Connect platform that you've connected a bunch of the alum to the other alums so that we can see this. I wish there was something like this when I had graduated. I had absolutely no idea about anything like this at all.
Yeah,
And obviously, technology has also evolved. But thank you for doing this.
yeah.
This is super, super important. Let's see. Each one's path is quite different, if you will. I don't know how much of it is deliberately planned, how much of it is serendipitous, and it's maybe a combination of a number of things. Um, I'll start with what I did yesterday, just as a way to work backward and to say, to give a little bit of sense of how I think about things, right? So yesterday I submitted my application. I'm applying for a one-year program in Stanford, which is called the Distinguished Careers Institute,
Mm,
where I had to write a bit of an essay about my journey and what I think about it. So one of the insights or learnings or thing that I would like to start with is learning is lifelong, it's continuous. All
mm,
of us need to make a attempt at every stage of our life to lead and lead by learning. Learning and learning comes in so many different ways, not necessarily linear. It's not necessarily academic. It's not necessarily in the area that you've thought about. And learning knows no age, no bounds. So pick an area and be curious and learn. So I would start with that as the number one. Then going back a little bit, if I can think of it, let me start with maybe my academic, right? So sure, finished CEG. The way I entered CEG was also quite non-traditional. I know a number of people, sort of, especially now I hear about youngsters who sort of have that as a nice end goal, and then they prepare for that, and then they get into CEG or IIT or any of the case may be. But I grew up in a traditional household where it was pretty much my mom had thought that she would get me married by 19, and yes, sure enough, get a bachelor's degree type of stuff. I was very curious about this thing called engineering, and I was very curious. No one in my parents, no one in my family is an engineer. But I was very curious, and so I applied for it. And at that time, Guindy was far away. We live in Mylapore, and Guindy was far away. So I remember my parents saying, "Oh, it's a field picnic. Let's go for a picnic. Let's sit there under the tree and have some nice puliodre and enjoy." And she'll just go attend the picnic and come back, the interview and come back. And I remember that's what I did. And during the interview, it was a fascinating interview. They asked me about the Kalpakkam nuclear reactor. They asked me about my aspirations, and I was like, "Wow, this is interesting." I had no idea about some of those things. So it was very the interview in itself was very energizing in the way CEG thought about these things. And then after that, I got in. I made lifelong friends there. Really amazing, really amazing. I think look back now and say 4 years I spent with CEG. 40 years later, they are my kith and kin. Just simply amazing. So one of the next things that I would transition to is, friendships are formed in colleges which are thicker than relatives, thicker than anything else. So please pay attention to relationships, friendships, and that's invaluable, if you will. CAG itself, I recall the teachers there were so dedicated. I mean, they were absolutely dedicated. It's probably hard to find such teachers these days. I remember we had Ferre Papa, Nityanandam, Vijay Raghavan, of course, was the principal. Number of them were, such dedicated teachers. The craft of teaching, and despite all the constraints that they had, and I look back about how much of resources is given to the teachers these days versus the faculty those days, it was just incredible, unbelievable how much they cared for the students and how much they cared for our progress. And I think that was the biggest part of the teaching, if you will. Yeah. And after that, I think in my last year, just about as it was in my last year, I got married and came to the US. When I came here a little bit, my thought was to continue engineering, and I must say that followed a linear path in terms of getting masters and PhD at Carnegie Mellon, same area, computer architecture. My advisor, this was the first time that I met someone. My advisor, Daniel Savorek, is a coal miner's son. His father had emigrated from Poland, and he was a coal miner. He had come in during the time of severe adversity himself, and it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating to see how a coal miner's son could be a professor at a distinguished university and have an excellent career. And this was something also which is quite different, because in India, I think a little bit we were used to a certain, right or wrong, certain homogeneous linear models. You're used to a model where somebody maybe, not that I knew any coal miners, but someone like that, reaching the top of an academic profession, which is very different, was not something that I had seen. And so this notion of America as a land of opportunities, where it forces you to think outside the box and pursue opportunities, was abundantly made clear. And Dan was so gentle and absolutely a stellar person. And a little bit of what I did after that was guided by Dan. Dan suggested that going to the West Coast and joining some of the tech companies, and I joined Hewlett Packard at that time. Um, and so far, I would say it's a predictable sort of a journey in terms of, yes, I had a engineering degree, pursued academics in that, and then took up a job as a researcher. I was what's known as a technical contributor in HP Labs. Worked on edge computing architectures. At that time, we were thinking about, if the loads are going to be moving to the edges and the bandwidth is not sufficient for the network to carry them between the compute and the edge, can we move the compute to the edge itself? That was the sort of framework and outline of my thesis and my work in HP Labs. Then I was facing this. I'd been there for a few years. It was not clear to me how much of the research gets implemented. So I began wondering about that. I began wondering, what scope of the entire problem am I handling by looking at the research of edge computing? Is there a beginning and an end? How to think about a broader scope of the problem? And I dreaded getting promoted into middle management, where it seemed to be very much, a resource pie division. And I was wondering, surely there's something, that I can have better impact in. And it's quite serendipitous. I met a senior partner from McKinsey named Mark Owen in one of the, I think, fairs. He had probably come to Hewlett Packard, I'm not sure. And he was talking about management, and he said, "Why don't you consider management? And this is something that might be, suitable for you." And I remember thinking, I've trained all my life, 5+ years of engineering in a PhD, K through 12, or 5 years at that time at CEG, etc. Right? So 10, 12 years of engineering, and it felt like I'd be abandoning that by going into management. There were many people who had actually, what should I call, classic degrees, whether it was English or history or policy or economics or finance, and then who had gone to elite MBA schools, which was the classic profile of McKinsey versus someone like me. And I wondered what was I doing, and I distinctly remember thinking 2 years from now I'm not going to rehire myself because my skills would have atrophied to such a point in engineering. But I said, okay, let's take the leap. And I remember that as a distinct point in time where went to McKinsey for the interviews. They have, usual, 7 or 8 interviews and all the whiteboard and problem solving and principles. And I had no idea what they were talking about. I remember one gentleman asked me, okay, consider the CAGR at which Nokia is growing is this. And I remember asking him, what is CAGR? And it was, well, he said, well, think of it as compound interest. I'm like, okay, that I can do. And so it went through a bunch of those. And then I joined McKinsey. I told myself, I've made this change in career, and let me think about it for 2 years. And if it's not something I like, then perhaps I'd go try something else. And here again, I would sort of urge you, as a way of insight or learning, to be open to possibilities, however different they look, and however insecure it might be from giving up your traditional path. If it looks like it's exciting to you, if it looks like don't let the unfamiliarity and uncertainty of it hold you back, because you can, it opens up vistas of possibilities. Then this was my longest career. I think I was 18 years at McKinsey. Never did an engagement that was longer than perhaps 12 weeks. It was an absolute privilege to serve the C-suite. It was an absolute privilege to be elected as the first global women partner of Digital McKinsey. It was an absolute privilege to have the international exposure I did. And I started developing a sympathy for these C-suite guys. If you think of they're the CEO, yes, you're the CEO, and you're moving a major tanker here. It takes a while for any kind of vision or mission or initiative to get implemented, and you're subject to all kinds of exogenous forces. Whether it is the economy, whether it is the Trump administration, whether it is the geopolitical risks of the Ukraine war or the Israel war, or whatever wars were at that time, and you're the CEO and you have to deliver value to the shareholders. So despite all these things, so I started developing a sympathy for these C-suite guys and what they do. And often we don't see that part of it. We see ourselves, in the rank and file, in the operational areas, executing these things. And it was a very different exposure and a very different understanding. And it was an absolute privilege. I like that quite a bit. Then just going on, and I think one of the things that McKinsey taught me was also that there are way more areas of reserves and abilities and capabilities that you have than you ever know. Your potential is enormous, right? Your potential is enormous, and it is not dictated by your marks or academic grades. Yes, in a highly competitive place like India and China, that is, if you will, a first filter. But as you go beyond that, I would say very much think about what are your intrinsic potential, and it's often much more than what is reflected on a piece of paper. And try to find an organization that will nurture and foster those things, that will think about growing you as an individual first and foremost, and second in whatever role you are, whether you're the software engineer or the manager or things like that. Think about what are those skills that you need. So that's a sort of another thing that I might sort of urge you to think about. Then I was an older mom, had a daughter just as I was close to 50, which was also quite unusual. Nobody I knew in my friends or relatives or anybody else had a child that late. And one of the reasons is, I feel like I can write a book on all the infertility procedures. And I asked myself, what is it that makes me want a child? And that was quite an interesting exploration as well. And I participated in several studies, etc., in order to come back and say, and it's quite a learning to understand, what is the desire and why. And now, of course, I'm a mother to a precious daughter. She's very much the darling of our lives. And then I thought I'd hang up my boots. My mother basically told me, well, you outsource a lot of things at McKinsey. Now you're outsourcing parenting. It doesn't quite work that way. You've got to spend some time with your child. And so I said, okay. And I gave up my McKinsey career. and was going to hang up my boots when some McKinsey friends at Google came and said, "Come on, you won't be traveling so much. Come on over." And I spent time at Google, and I probably did it my way in terms of not staying there. I covered major product areas. One was organic search, second was cloud, and third was advertisement. And in each of those areas, it was quite a different role and quite a different set of projects. So in some way, I was thinking of myself as an internal consultant within Google, if you can think of it that way, and quite enjoyed my time. And towards the time that I was in cloud, perhaps maybe 3 or 4 years into Google, Korn Ferry had conducted a national search in order to find a board member for Southern Company, which is a $95 million market cap energy company in the southeastern United States. They make, move, and sell energy, and I remember thinking, what am I going to do at a utility company, particularly because I had served a utility company in McKinsey, and it's a very slow government and regulations ridden sector, and it's very hard for anyone to do anything there. But now the times were different. There was climate change, there was a burning platform, there was the urgency of moving and delivering energy without fossil fuels. And Tom, the CEO, was very much open minded to that. And he said, "Janaki, we need people like you. I'm surrounded by white Southern hat people. Come on." And I explained to him that, he lived in Atlanta and I live in the West Coast. And he said, "Sure, we'll send you a jet if that's your requirement." And I remember thinking that, let's go and let's give it a go. And it's been so rewarding, so much so that it's helped shape my next phase of my career. I'm now an active board member. And board member, I have two public companies. One is Southern, and the second is Sallie Mae, and then two private companies. One is Fractal.AI, which perhaps could be listing anytime soon in Sensex, and then the last one is Avrerq. A little bit about corporate governance, because I don't know how many of the sessions you conducted, Vish, they might have touched on it. So let me take a little bit regarding corporate governance. Often we see the path, where you have operational, which is reporting into the management, and then that reports into the C-suite and the CEO. But what happens is the CEO and the C suite report into a board, which is the corporate board. The board has the interests of the investors, the stakeholders, the consumers, the customers, all at heart, and not just the shareholders. So there's a little bit of a corporate governance in order to provide oversight, in order to say that what the company is doing is no doubt providing value to the investors who have risked a lot in order to float that company, but also serving, for instance, in the case of Southern, we balance energy justice. Often, it is the lowest economic group that needs to be served by energy, and if energy prices go up, it becomes a bigger and bigger part of their wallet. And so, how do you make this transition to net zero without affecting the wallets of the lower economic people? Is a very big question that the board wrestles with and makes sure that the management decisions are in line with that. Another question is, geopolitical risk. If you're getting pipeline from anywhere else, gas or any of this from anywhere else, we're very close. The board has a relationship with the administration in order to affect the policy and regulations, in order to come back and say that, hey, you have companies such as Southern, which are very large energy companies. And if the energy company needs to do certain things, and if you're going to give, for instance, production tax credits to green energy, you also need to extend that to nuclear energy, as an example. So these are kinds of dialogues that a corporate governance does. It provides oversight to the C-suite, and often we also do CEO succession in order to come back and say who is the next CEO who can lead the company. We talk about the incentives, the pay packages of the CEO and the C-suite. And so this corporate governance plays a very vital role in the role of a company. And it's one of the things that establishes a very robust financial system in the United States compared to any other company, any other world. In India now, I see through my other board role how they are catching up in order to establish these guardrails, but it's not quite there. One of the reasons why the United States is where the dollar and all the money comes in, even from China, is because it has such a robust, financial system, which includes checks and balances it at every step of the way, if you will. So if you so that's a little bit about corporate governance. And in corporate governance, it's divided into various committees. I chair what's known as the BSR committee, Business Security and Reliance Committee, and we do very much topics around AI and cybersecurity now. And then we talk about audit. In the audit committee, we talk about compensation committees, etc. So it's a little bit of a very quick thumbline in terms of what corporate governance does in itself. And I'm not sure that there is a profile that I can come back and say that I can come back and say is particularly suited for corporate governance. But national reputation is typically one of the things they look for. And second is, expertise in a given area, but generally very broad management area. And it is something that, if you like to do, it's a 7 or a 10 year swing at it, and absolutely rewarding. You get a complete view into how the system works. Let me stop there, Vish, if you will. I don't know how we are doing with respect to the 15 or 20 minutes,
You've done
and
you've done very well actually. Perfect. You've done very, very well time wise. Very, very well.
excellent.
A lot of I've made quite a few notes when you're talking. First thing, I'm also from Mylapore, so we have a common thing. I still live in
Excellent.
Mylapore. I still live in Mylapore actually. Born in Mylapore, brought up in Mylapore, and returned back to Mylapore after a 22-year detour in the US.
Very
Uh,
nice.
and my daughter works for Google today in search, so that's another commonality I found. I've been a CEO of public companies in the US, and I understand how lonely it feels. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough people like you at the time. My board members weren't exactly very helpful. I can tell you that much. Uh, of course, we were working in a very highly competitive industry in the US, and so this is right after this is in the period after the Sarbanes-Oxley law, and so there are a lot of new regulations that are not known to people at the time, and we were all trying to figure out exactly what that means and what exactly are we signing up for. And I distinctly remember that my our accountant and our lawyer will come and ask me to sign a bunch of papers, and there'll be like hundreds of them, and I have no idea what they ask me to sign. And the only way I say that trust us, this is all good for you. That's all I hear from them.
Where was your general counsel, Vish?
A company was based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So we had a company from Delaware, which we hired. This is a company that has been working with our group companies for a long time. Our accountant was from one of the accounting firms. I think KPMG, ex KPMG person was hired as our accountant, basically. But I had to say, our company had operations in 34 states in the US, and we had to file tax return on all 34 states. So September month, usually my assistant will come and say you have to take a couple of days off, but not anywhere outside the office
That's right.
because you had to sign. And this is incredible. You had to sign thousands of pages of documents. So I completely agree with you that CEOs need a buddy and they need someone to help them. Let me tell you what I do now as a psychologist. I went back to college, went back to school and got a degree in psychology, and I specialize in counseling C-level people and startup founders. Exactly the same reason you mentioned that these people have no one to talk to. Everybody is looking at them, right? Employees are looking at them, investors are looking at them, board members are looking at them, customers are looking at them, and they have no one to talk to. So I have quite a few of my clients in counseling who are from CEOs and board members, and they really have a lot of challenges, and it's tremendous pressure, high stress, highly performance oriented jobs, etc. All that. So I do that regularly now, and it's great because I can bring my experience being a CEO and I did through all the stuff, plus the experience in counseling. So if you do know of anyone which you come across who needs counseling, by all means, please refer them to me. I'm not a licensed counselor in the United States. I'm only counseling in India now because I don't have a license to practice in the US yet. The other thing I found out is that about governance, I do hear that governance is also becoming a big deal in India now. I am actually working in the board of a few private companies and public companies in India. It is different because I know that the regulations in the US are in some areas very different from how it is in India. But it is catching up. It's becoming more formal, and it's also becoming more challenging actually because of lawsuits from investors and stuff that happens, which was not the case before. But now we have a lot of activist investors in India as well, who can take you to the cleaners if you're not very careful. So I can share all those things. The last thing I want to ask you is talk about late age parenting. Interesting because I'm actually counseling one CEG girl actually who's going through the same challenge. And I was wondering that if I can get her permission, maybe I can connect her to you because this might be an area which nobody can help without any experience, right? So I'll ask her if she wants to talk to you. Maybe you can give her some guidance or some experience so that she doesn't feel like she's the only one who's going through this problem. Actually,
No, happy to, but it's a well-researched field. It is in the
yeah,
US. I don't know
yeah,
about India, but
yeah.
yeah,
This person is in the US actually.
yeah.
Technically. Anyway, great, excellent. A lot of good inputs from you. The transition from engineering to management is another good one. A lot of people are doing it or planning to do it. So that's a good one to talk about. The other one is working in a consulting company and then going to become a board member directly and an organization. I know I'm surprised you have stayed in McKinsey 18 years. I don't know anyone who had stayed in McKinsey more than a few years actually. They all go there and work 4 years and then they all exit and go somewhere else. So 18 years is a very, very long time. Amazing. Was it because you had short, long projects or?
No, no, none of our projects were more than 12 weeks. Maybe, I was a glutton for punishment. We have an up or out system where every 6 months you're either up or out. So there is no such thing called equilibrium. So it's a
Oh,
brutal system. And that's one of the reasons why people stay for 2, 3 years. And, they feel like, okay, I've learned most of it now. The rest of it is, it depends on what you want to do. But yeah, 18 years is a long time.
yeah, that's an amazing long time because I think the average shelf life of people in McKinsey is like 3 or 4 years. I had quite a few people who work in my company who came from McKinsey, and of course these people come with a lot of knowledge because they work in multiple industries and multiple different projects. Hiring someone who has worked in McKinsey is always good because they do have look a lot. They have seen the world, they have worked with different people, so they're also very expensive, by the way, as well. So, but yeah, definitely encourage people who are looking for some strategic advice to look for some seasoned consulting person. Okay, super. So now we're going to do is we're going to open up for questions, Janaki. I have a few questions that I wanted to ask you first.
Sure.
First one is, you've been in the US and you've been working there and in senior positions in big companies. Now, there's still this thing about women in the US, women in general all over the world have certain challenges in coming through the corporate culture, whether it is in a private company, a public company, anywhere. In your own career, did you ever see anywhere that you had to deal with any challenges being a woman? And if that's the case, how did you deal with that?
I don't think so. And, maybe it's a little bit of a. I always thought of myself as a professional first
Uh,
and a woman professional next.
mm, mm,
And if anything regarding women, I think of myself as a mother now. But prior to that, I thought of myself primarily as a professional. No, I don't think so, right? I don't think that I mean, it was quite, when I was elected, I was the first woman partner to be elected in digital McKinsey globally. So in that sense, yes, there are not that many women, in very senior roles. That is also changing, very
mm,
much changing. I'm afraid that now there's been a bit of a backlash to DEI, and
mm,
so I'm not quite sure how that trajectory might be. But when I graduated with a PhD, I think we were 6%, women in computer engineering and computer science. We were 6% of the graduating PhD in the United States. And I had heard that that number had fallen since. And so universities trying to hire women faculty, have a real problem, had a real problem. So it has come down perhaps a little bit since my time, and maybe it goes up and down a little in terms of the actual numbers. um, I don't know. I feel like I always led with my ideas. My work spoke for itself,
mm,
and very rarely thought of myself as a woman in that
mm,
sense.
mm,
And then there are these other questions in terms of women are different. They absolutely are different. There is no doubt about it. Our leadership style is different. We tend to be perhaps maybe a little bit more nurturing and fostering, which can come across as not having plain speaking, whereas sometimes the team members would like you to very plainly tell them what is it that you're
mm,
not doing.
mm,
Perhaps, I don't know. Um, I do think our leadership styles is distinct and brings a lot to the table,
mm.
and it is quite different. Um, but very simply, I would encourage yourself, anybody, man or woman, to do a good job of what they.
Interesting about diversity, I don't know if you know that CEG is one of the most diverse colleges in the world. Actually, our student intake nowadays is almost 50-50.
Yeah.
50 women, 50% girls, 50% boys. I don't think any college I know of in the world can claim 50-50 actually. And a lot of US colleges have a good amount of diversity, but
They do, they do. And it's also, if not 50, it's close to 50. But the unfortunate thing is it falls off after that. So,
yeah.
if we look at the pipeline, even entering at Google, we did lots of analysis, right? So
Mm,
the entering class,
mm,
yes, there is a fair amount of, diversity, and there's a fair proportionate representation. But as you go more and more senior, it
mm,
falls off dramatically. And then we've had questions of, is it retention? Because the favorite argument is to say that the incoming pipeline, there are very few, and therefore there's very few that can
mm,
matriculate up through the
mm,
senior ranks.
mm, mm,
But that is not the case, because the incoming class, whether it's in the college or in, in these companies, there
mm,
is a fair representation of women, but
mm.
falls off quite dramatically. And then there's the argument that the childbearing years unfortunately coincide exactly with those professional years, and therefore it falls off. Another argument is that women find it very hard to return to the workforce after a break, and maybe that's also another reason why it falls off, etc. Right? So people have grappled with this problem for a long, long time.
I think very fair. I think this situation is changing even in India as well. A lot of women people in the corporate sector as well. Um, but there is still, like say, when you go to hire, for example, whether in India, there are some people who still have certain prejudices against hiring, and people justify with various different reasons. And I don't necessarily say justification is right or wrong. All I seen in my experience is that honestly, I've seen women do better than men in most jobs actually. So maybe you can call me reverse prejudice or
I
something.
don't know about that, Vish. I've heard that argument before, and pardon me, but it comes across a bit backhanded, because they say that women are better at execution and operation versus strategy, and the high level thinking needs to be, So I've heard various facets of this, if you will.
And I think what I see and experience is that they're a lot more dedicated and a lot more sincere, particularly the younger generation now. The company I used to run in India had lots of youngsters, all less than 30 years old, and I found that the women I had a lot more to contribute, sincerity and coming show up and doing things, etc.
Indeed.
In the boys section. Okay, so let's open up for questions from the audience. Let's see what questions we
Please.
have. So Sundaram Prabhu, you had a question? You can unmute and
Yeah,
ask your question, please.
yeah. First of all, I want to thank Madam Janaki for giving a very vivid and very confident appeal at the C-level executive, what she has been doing without any hesitation. The word she said, professional, it never, uh, I want to say that, say it's a male or female, it's immaterial. It's the knowledge what she carried, put it along all the way. That encourages me and that encourages every one of us when I started listening. When I heard about the corporate governance, she has been to the point. Yeah, it's not the question of the investor, it's the question of all stakeholders. When he says all stakeholders, even the gender itself is also included. And she never had any hesitation to be with any one of the institutions what she has been working with. The only question is, it's a question of admiration, a question of acceptance, and question of inculcating the same or imbibing the same quality, passing on to the next generation, as our Visha said it very rightly, whether whichever country they belong. I, as an chairman of a bank, not in a very big place, a small place, Afghanistan, for about 9 years.
Wow.
I, I had a tough fight with the bad boys day for yesterday.
Mm.
The reason is that we can't accept to them what they want.
Mm,
But whereas my principles are from Dubai,
mm,
and I've been in US for the last 2 years. Just I come back to India.
mm,
Mm.
I stay in Houston and Dallas. The point here is I specialized in financial management in
mm,
India.
mm,
I was the Audit Reforms Committee for Government of Tamil Nadu,
mm,
and been working with various high-level institutions, including Indian Institute of Science as the
mm,
member, along with Dr. The great scientists like Chidambaram
mm,
and others. I was with the Prime Minister's office, and I started a very important organization. When I came to US, I used to meet a lot of people. But the fortunate thing is meeting people like Madam Janaki and listening to them was one of the really good thing that and as not only as an Indian, she will not call her as an Indian now. She is more American than Indian. That gives that gives a lot of confidence for everybody, even for me. When I worked in a very bad area, how I managed these guys,
Yeah.
how I worked in that particular situation prior to that, with the guns everywhere around and the gunshots happening. Even I will also fault, underwent the situation.
Right.
Working there is so difficult, but it is I do find the other way around. Working in US, being in this situation, she has proved to be an excellent executive, and she represents many boards, and it's really making feel good of that. I
Absolutely. I
don't
think
want to have say any questions on that
no,
because
absolutely. I think very well, very good comments and very well put. Actually, very proud of
and
what she has done.
sh-
Clearly.
Thank you for your kind
she
words. Thank you.
Yeah.
and you can see my profile on the LinkedIn. And
Yeah.
as usual, I've been listening to your conversations for quite some time, not only in this. Today, I happen to have some time because this banking system is there. No, it really needs our time,
Okay.
and you can't get identified too much also because they will impregnate their thoughts into our minds beyond the level. So in US, being in US, we have to be very, very careful about our steps.
Yeah.
Unless the
Exactly.
steps are measured, we can't survey. Just as an introduction and appreciation of my feeling and understanding of us and her expressions and her thoughts,
Thank you.
I'm really great to have to participate in this
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
interactive session.
Thank,
Thank you, sir.
thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam.
So the next question, Janaki, is from Arjun. Arjun, are you still there? Or I can ask the question. Arjun says, thanks for your valuable insights. Quite interesting. I am a mechanical engineer with expertise in packaging. Can you please guide me to get into management roles?
I see. And maybe this is more broadly a question that if you have a certain functional expertise and want to broaden out how you might do that,
Yeah.
one option, which is a sort of a easier way to do, if you will, to some extent, is to maybe go and apply for an MBA, if you will, right? And one of the elite universities, and look, there are many universities and where the MBA requires an engineering background. Does not
Mm,
matter which one, but they require an engineering background.
mm,
So if you were to think of a Wharton MBA as an example, they look for an engineering background. A Berkeley MBA, they look for an engineering background, versus a Chicago Booth MBA, where they look for an economics background.
mm,
But in Chicago also we have engineering background. So the MBAs are not all the same. And they look for, in certain areas where they have an engineering background, doesn't matter which engineering, civil, mechanical, electrical, whatever, right? So maybe a place to start in order to go and get an MBA. That's one option. The second option is to look and apply for internships. Look for, even in your own company, an internship role, which is not mechanical, but it's a management apprentice, management apprentice of something or the other. Yeah, and the last one I'd say is, nonprofit organizations. There are nonprofit organizations which are yearning for any kind of talent, and if you're prepared to give your time and go and help them with whatever the topic is, it could be organizing in order to do something else, whatever project or initiative. And all of these things will give you a little bit taste of management, and then you can decide whether you actually like it or not. You may
right.
find that you don't.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Okay. The next question on the line is again from anonymous. I don't know who that is, but the question is, how do you de-risk for liabilities as a board member?
It's an excellent question. We have director
DNO, right?
insurance.
DNO insurance, right?
Yes, so we have director insurance, and the director's insurance compensates us, basically undertakes the legal fees that would be required in the event of a litigation. But it is true that the director is personally liable. So my personal assets, my house and car, etc., we are personally liable for any untoward incidents. But there is director's insurance, that is one. But typically, the general counsel of the company would address a number of questions for the litigation that is underway, including the responsibility of the director. Above and beyond that, then you can have the director's lawyers who talk about director's litigation in particular, and then after that it comes. But one of the things is that maybe the underlying cause, motivation of your question is, what is my responsibility? What is the director's responsibility? The director's responsibility is known as duty of care and conduct. I have to be able to show in every way, whether it is by documentation in the minutes of the meeting, whether it is by the discussions that I've had. I have to be able to show that I've exhibited a certain duty of care. So if a certain framework has number has been put to me, operational metric, right, I should be able to say that that metric is off the benchmark by X or Y, and I've had the discussion asking the management, why is it off by X or Y? And then have you take the necessary steps to take X or Y? And that's where governance stops. It that does not require me to go and fix that particular metric. So there's a difference between operational and corporate, but I have to show a duty of care in order to say that I've considered that and I've asked the right question and pointed the management in the right direction.
Right, right. See, the challenge, I'll tell you, in difference between US and India in this role is that here, for some reason, the director role is still considered as a token role in India. People, in fact, they go out and find people who are not going to ask them questions. I really find it very amusing. Maybe because it's just convenient. I don't know what it is, but so there are times when people will say that, can you please come and join my company as a board? I said, what do you want me to do that is so different than others? I said, so I think you won't be asking difficult questions. They said, that's exactly what I'm not going to do. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. So that the feeling that you need someone to sign off on doing things is there. I guess in the US that's not the case. I know a lot of companies have directors who definitely ask a lot of questions and probing questions, particularly with things like if you're on the compensation committee or if you're in the audit committee.
Absolutely.
You're going to have a lot of people asking some very challenging questions. Those are the places where you could end up being looked as being liable if you haven't seen something that is going on that you should have caught in the first place. Right?
That's right. That's right. And for all of these, there are very strict guidelines. There are SEC rules, there's regulations. If you were to talk about compensation, we use something known as multiple of medians, right? MOM rule, where we come back and say that if I were to look at other companies in this market cap, right, what is the compensation of the CEO? What is the nature of that compensation? How much of it is equity? How much of it is pension? How much of it is cash? Then we look at that and then come back and say, what am I doing in terms of paying my CEO? If it is different, why is it different? Has he, and then typically his targets in terms of what he has to achieve, whether it is environmental, safety, return to the shareholder, etc., is set the year before, right? So when you look at it a year later, we look at it very objectively in order to say, have you hit these targets? Then we come back, look at multiple of means. Then we have discussion with analysts, with investors, across the board. So we have a discussion, for instance, with Vanguard, which typically tends to be a very large investor in these very large companies, in order to come back and say, what do you think of this guy? Right. So there's so much of input going in, and then we as a director take a decision. So now it is my duty of care to come back and say, I have done all this diligence. I should be able to show these are the 15 steps I've taken before determining the pay and compensation.
Okay, at this point, I want all the participants to open up your video. I would like to take a screenshot, please, if you can open up your video. And I also want to ask people if you have any questions, because I don't see any questions in the Slido, but if people want to ask questions. Ravi, you want to ask a question? Please go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, thanks for sharing all your inputs, very valuable inputs, no doubt. As Mr. Sundaram Prabhu said that. I'm actually there, an engineer, come MBA, and been there in the industry for quite long. And also had my own, experience there sitting in the board of two of the companies, one in the UK and one in the, in India, a startup. But later I refused to get into any of the, be there in our board kind of a request, simply because like what Vish said, people need a rubber stamp most of the time. I'm not prepared to be one. And second is, out of my own experience, what I saw was there is a myriad of laws in India. Typically, like what do you call, like you want to implement the right thing, do things the right way, you want to implement, something which is actually working and all that. But when you go there and then try to figure out, even as what do you call, simple as one thing conflicting the other, one interpretation conflicting the other, and all you encounter on a very frequent basis. Kind of. So to me, like I can be there in the board, and I do believe that my actually there, antenna and my experience, all that will make me very successful in corporate governance, provided it is there in the right way. on seeing what is there as per the interpretation of the government, the laws, various laws, including the Company Act, which was updated in 2013 supposedly, and all that stuff. It was quite actually there, like difficult actually there to follow that and all that. So
Yeah.
I refuse to be part of many of the boards. The same reason why even as independent director, like as late as probably 2 months back, there was a request to be there in the as an independent director in the board. Although I've not taken the exam, purposely because of this reason. I'm holding back.
Yeah.
I probably will do that and then go and do it. But again, that's the case. Yeah, more of a sharing of the experience. So you said the duty of care, and I didn't get the second part. What was the other one you said? Duty of care and
Conduct.
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 Fine.
For
Conduct is
instance,
our own
cannot.
conduct. Obviously, that's very clear. And then
Yeah.
care is what you take towards your duties as a director and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, that term is very interesting. Probably I'll use it. Thanks
Care
to
and
you.
conduct. Yeah. It's like a very US type term, right? I don't think I've seen it in India. People use
We
that.
don't see it in India. We don't hear it much at all in
Yeah.
India, actually.
So
I don't.
conduct has, apart from don't get on a TikTok and say something stupid. There are questions like, I have enormous amount of inside information, which my conduct I cannot share with anyone else,
Right.
as an
Right.
example.
Right.
Very true.
That's
Very true.
that's a place where in India it gets very dodgy, Janaki, because public, particularly if you're a board member in a public listed company here, there are people who are going to provide information that they're not supposed to provide anyway, but then they'll do it in your own name without telling you.
No,
It's
understood.
it's
And
quite
just being a optimist, I would say that I believe the Indian corporate governance system is going through a maturation process. It probably will be a little while, but it will get there. I'm editing some of the regulations coming from, what is it called, IICA.
yeah.
Yep.
Some of,
Right.
yeah, some of those people. So it'll get there. It'll get there.
There's an
Right.
institute for board members. You write an exam because the way it works in India is that you could become a board member without writing the exam, but within a certain amount of time of taking a board position, you have to write the exam and pass the exam. That's how they work here. And that exam, the board director exam, is like you have to prepare for a few months and write the exam. It's not a very difficult exam, really. They do ask a lot of detailed questions about some of the company law and stuff that you need to be aware of, but it's not a very difficult exam. And without having that exam qualification, you can't continue. You can join, but you can't continue unless you show evidence of that with the Ministry
I
of
see.
Company Affairs.
Yeah, they have been there for the past 3-4 years, and kind of getting so-called popular. But there are people who are able to bend it also to their convenience. Like
Exactly.
can't name it, but I'm fighting with one particular company right now. Actually, there where the public limited company, big company, wherein the independent director who was brought in actually there by the CEO has been a partner of the CEO in a different company earlier, which
Conflict of interest. We don't know what that is. We don't care about that.
exactly like that. But then brought conveniently as an independent director, what level of independence that person will have?
That's true too.
His friend there as a CEO is something always left to your imagination types.
That's true too. The other issue in India I see is that the compensation, right? There's no standard compensation here in India for directors. It really is negotiable, and that leaves you with a lot of challenges because people think when they pay you more, they expect you to say yes to more things.
That's right.
It's like I'm not for sale. Sorry.
Return on investment, yes.
There was a time, I was going to say, when consulting was thought of as a profession where the consultant will come and take your watch and tell you the time. So, we've matured since then. I expect we'll get that way as well for corporate governance.
I hope so. There's a question from another student, Kaushalya. Kaushalya, do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yes, sir. Hi, sir. Thank you very much for this session. It has been very insightful and inspiring. I just had 2 questions. You have been very agile in exploring various domains as part of your career, from finance to healthcare, and then ads and security. You've been very agile. Like, do you have any tips on how we can explore so many domains in short span of time? And also, there's this thing where you should not miss out on the whole forest while searching for the trees, right? Like while having a bigger view.
Well
How
said.
do we balance them?
Wow, Kaushalya, you are an inspiration. It's so wonderful to see you on this call. I probably wouldn't have put 2 words together when I was perhaps your age. So wonderful to see you on the call. You're already there, I can tell you. In terms of just different fields, and I'm eternally curious. So when there is a project, so when I took up a 12-week project, for instance, in the CMS, which is the Medicare system broadly in the United States, one of the questions we were dealing with is there are 12 definitions of death, right? So the coding in the system, in the software, talks of 12 definitions in order, because they're recompensed differently. So I give you that as a very stark example, which got me interested. And then I don't know how many volumes I read. I read everything there was up and down the line in terms of, the coding, the ICD codes, this and that, and everything else. So in terms of different areas, I would just say curiosity. That's one. Second, talk to anybody. I would talk to anybody up and down the line. Whoever would give me the time of day, I would talk to them, right? So talk to them would be another one. And then think about if there is a way in which there is and this is a little bit more tricky in terms of a progression of ideas, right? If there's a progression of ideas that you can construct for yourself, then I think there is. And at the end of the day, one of the things that McKinsey, I believe, taught me very well, which I would love to see maybe in a college such as CEG, is problem solving, right? How do you problem solve? What do you start with? What are the facts that you're looking for in order to answer the questions? What are the questions, and then what is the next one? So if you are good at problem solving, I think that it's a way to start. But you're there, Kaushalya. I'm so totally blown away by seeing you on this call.
Absolutely. Which year are you studying, Kaushalya?
Actually, I recently passed out this
Ah,
recently, so I'm in city now.
excellent,
Yeah.
excellent, excellent, excellent. Very nice. I have another question in the
Thank you.
line, Janaki. This is
Sure.
from someone anonymous. How do you see the advancements in AI impact jobs? Example, AI agents trying to replicate a full-time role. Will there be enough jobs?
Come on, you can't ask me to look at the crystal ball. There's enough crystal ball gazing that's happening with respect to this. But what I can tell you is, there's a lot of excitement. Try not to be jaded, or try not to be sort of, insecure, if I can call it. There's a lot of excitement. The abilities of this, there's ranges of, the number of jobs, at least in the United States, somewhere between 30 to 70% are going to be replaced by AI. Maybe they are, maybe they're not, I don't know. But let's go with, some fraction of that. And then there is also this notion of AI, human in the loop, where the agent is going to do something. I'll give you an example. So one of the thing is, now you would go and ask the system, um, tell me, a movie which ends happily, and it's playing, and then it'll give you some suggestions. Tomorrow you'll go back and you'll tell the AI, I'm unhappy, and the AI knows enough about you in order to come back and say, you need to go get a meal. When was the last time you ate? Or so instead of it giving an answer to a specific question, the agent is going to take on agency in order to come back and say, okay, how can I solve this? Okay, have you eaten? Okay, let's think of something else. Would you like to go see a movie? Shall I suggest a movie to you? Now, that's a very different form of an interaction, if you will, right? So I do think that some of that in terms of replacement of the existing roles will happen. But I'm not so sure whether the jobs will go away. I think fundamentally jobs are going to be redefined. I would say retain your curiosity. Think about, what is it that the AI does or does not do. It's fascinating. I mean, I can't believe I'm alive in a world where I'm seeing this, a future where robots will be commingled with human beings. And what does it mean to have this kind of interactions? What does it mean to be in a place where, it's all going to be green, and my daughter is not going to own a car, and, Uber and Lyft are just, stakeholders for her, right? And she's probably tomorrow going to be maybe, I don't know, in flying cars or something else. The future is just fabulous, and we are just playing one role in it. It is an absolutely wonderful moment in time.
Absolutely. Thank you. Santosh, do you have a question? Please unmute and ask your question, Santosh. You can unmute yourself too.
Perhaps he has a bit of a bandwidth issue.
Santosh, you have a question? Okay. He said he had a question, but I don't know why he. Santosh, are you going to ask the question? Hello? Yeah, go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay. So I want to again say something that everybody have said. Excellent and very inspiring talk. And also I want to say what you said about Kaushalya was point on. I mean, basically, I remember when I graduated, I couldn't speak. it took me a long time to actually get to that point.
Yeah.
We spoke about a few people who talked about uh, people on a successful path who actually moved very rapidly or generally kept progressing in their career. But what about people that have progressed in their career, gotten to a word stalled, and they restart? I mean, do you
Okay.
know example or something from your experience?
If I understand your question, it's about maybe hitting a plateau and then how do you then move up after that?
Exactly.
Yeah, so there are a couple of things. One of the things that's very, very common in the valley here, at least, is job hopping, right? So there's a lateral move into another company, and then that opens up different vistas because it may be the same level, but it's a different role, it's a different company. So that's maybe at least one thing to think about. Another thing is to I find that asking an existing organization to think of you differently is a little difficult, right? So if you go and say that I'm an engineer, I've now gone to an MBA and I've come back and I have an MBA and please consider me for the management cadre roles, it's typically difficult because they've started thinking about you in a particular way, if you will, right? And they sort of, put you in that box and they think of, okay, Janaki is this, right? Or Santosh is that, right? So typically it is difficult, but not unheard of, not unheard of. Sometimes people think of it and come back and say that yes, there was an engineer, so they know my organization and they've acquired new skills now, so perhaps I can take a chance on that. But I'd come back and say that it is generally more difficult to break down existing impressions, and so maybe a move outside, a lateral move outside, maybe something to think about. Going back to school, going back to graduate school, if there are many people, if you're young at a certain age, go back to graduate school. Or if you're like me, go to the DCI and go and say that, come on, there's got to be more to life.
Yeah, absolutely. You said you're going back to Stanford University, you said in the
That's
beginning?
right. That's right.
What's the program that you're going for?
It's called DCI, Distinguished Careers Institute. I don't have admission yet. I'm waiting. It's highly competitive. Let's see what happens.
What does it entail actually? I'm just curious.
It's for executives at a point in time when you're redefining in order to come back and say, how can I have meaning and impact in life at
Oh
this stage
wow.
of so I'm looking at so we have the opportunity to take any course that a Stanford undergraduate takes anywhere across the campus. Only thing is we won't be graded, thank God, but we would have the
Ah,
opportunity of intergenerational learning. So I'll be sitting in a class with a 16-year-old, right, and a 17-year-old. So that is one. Second is you can undertake various projects. I'm thinking of a couple of projects which is around this intergenerational dynamics and approach. Mainly because I have a little one who is 11 years old, and there's a bit of a generational gap there. Or another one is around energy, right? It's all very nice to talk about, leaving a planet. There is many studies which talks that the next generation is insecure about the planet and what the previous generations have done and the planet that they are inheriting. So perhaps something that we can think of. So there is a thematic focus to it, there is an intergenerational focus to it, and then there are classes. And then I was thinking of some policy questions as it relates to geopolitical risks in the Hoover Institution, and
wow.
maybe go look at that. So I've suggested 2 or 3 things. Let's see.
How long is this usually?
1 year.
And you get a certificate at the end, or some diploma or something.
They
like
give you a certificate. It's a residential program. You cannot take any operational role. So typically, a C-suite person who is in role doesn't get, doesn't apply. But after they don't, when you don't have an operational exec role, then you can
that. The
apply.
in-person class, basically.
Yes, on campus.
Oh wow, interesting. Super. So I have another question from Raji Sridhar. Raji, do you want to ask a question, please?
Raji, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Janaki, I know how much authentically you care. Like we talked a lot about these things. Like there was this hiking group and I wasn't regular in that. And then there was a moonlight walk and I signed up for that. And that day the moon was not full.
Oh, this is a Murli's hiking group.
No, another one.
We have a women's group too.
Oh wow! Oh wow!
And
Bay Area
also-
women's group. I mean, I see. Okay.
And then I go there, and it is not as bright as the full moon. And Janaki literally handheld me through that entire hike, and it is a memorable experience.
Wow.
holding her hand and chatting with her and
Wow.
doing that moonlight walk at late in the night.
Memorable for me too, Raji. It was fabulous. You got to live a little.
Right, right. So this AI thing, there is so much excitement, so
Yes,
much of things we can learn, and yes, one side is, are we moving towards singularity? AI is going to take
yes,
over, and one day it is going to be more powerful than us. And on the other side, there is so much of, for example, I just looked at Fractal, and you do fraud prevention.
yes,
And when there is other side, the fear of fraud, AI fraud,
yes.
right? Like, so I just wanted to get your insights on this.
No, absolutely right. So, one of the things, and I'm obviously going out on a limb here, one of the things that I think will make a big difference in AI is when quantum computing comes up, right? So, I think that we are struggling now with the amount of compute power that is required in order to go and look at some of these things. So I do think the next, if you will call it breakthrough, or if you will happen when some of the quantum computing comes in. So and the applications of AI cannot afford to be so centralized anymore. I don't think that we can be in a place where you have very large sets. Creating the LLM models. At the end of the day, it's going to be the big five who are going to create the LLM models. Nobody else can afford to have that kind of a compute, and the rest of them are going to have only training on their particular data, whether it is RAG or agentic or something else in between, and putting a wrapper on top of it. I think that's pretty much going to be the evolution. So you're going to take a copy of the LLM, you're going to have it on your own private cloud, you're going to put it with your own data, and then put the applications on top of it. That's probably the way some of these AI applications are evolving as of now. In terms of fraud detection and some of those, the trends that I'm seeing is now what happens is, if I were to go and make a, $20,000 purchase using my Citibank card, I do get a call, right? I do get a call a day later in order to say that, hey, that looks like fraud and what can
Yeah.
we do? But what is happening is that they're going to the back end and they're doing the analysis, the analytics, the BI, etc., in order to come back and say that this is not a pattern of your purchase and therefore there's something wrong. It's an anomaly in there. But we are trying to move with AI to the point of scanner. Just when you're putting your card through, can I tell you right there? And in order for that to happen, we need to have AI at scale, tiny little thing out there at the edge, so that we can do some of these things. So I think that there are very many fascinating uses and applications of AI that can come forth. AI in mobile hasn't even started. And I think that that can be quite different when it comes, if you will. And in terms of guardrails and governance, it's very interesting. You see, bureaucrats, health, whoever in government, whoever thought there's tech in government. Today you have tech in government precisely for this reason, right? They are seeing that the areas of tech that are happening are hitting into regulations, not only AI, other areas. Obviously, you had a big example is Elon Musk out there, but then we have here, Sam Altman, who's gone in and, who's with the mayoral campaign of San Francisco here. So there's quite a lot of this in order to come back, because there is a recognition in terms of either protection, establishing guardrails, more prominently so in the case of AI than in other tech, but even other tech. Privacy is another big one out there.
Yeah.
So I do think that we'll see some of these things coming together in crossroads.
Super. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I think we're running out of time, Janaki. So I'll do a few things at the end.
Please.
People may want to contact you. So what's the best way to reach you if somebody wants to reach out to you?
LinkedIn may be the best thing. Yeah, just LinkedIn.
Your LinkedIn profile link is already provided for all the
Excellent.
people, so they should be able to reach out to you. Second thing is, are you willing to mentor people if they want mentorship from you, particularly women from CEG who might want to get mentorship from you, either
I'll
in the
sign
US
up.
or in India?
I'll sign up for Kausalya.
Yeah, I'm sure she can get it. Yeah. Actually, I got a deal now. You got a deal.
Thank you very much, Mom.
And last thing is that, again, thank you so much. I think what I'm also thinking is that this CEG Field Insights program that we do on a quarterly basis, maybe we should have a topic on corporate governance. I don't
Happy
think
to.
we have thought about that, and I'm sure there are a lot of people who are senior alumni who might be towards the end of their corporate careers may consider. Certainly, I would like to learn, because I've done stuff in India. I haven't done a corporate governance role in the US, but certainly we can hear from you in terms of what it means to be in the board and governance, etc. I don't know if people need to know the SEC regulations for that, but you can still probably give some idea about that as well, if you can. So we'll schedule sometime next year for that, and that'll also be a 1 hour call like this, but except that the focus will be only on the industry or the governance in this case to do that. Anyway, thank you so much. I know it's very early morning for you in San Francisco on a Sunday. There are many things I would do on a Sunday morning, but thank you
As
so much.
Raji knows, I'm usually out on a hike, so no problem.
If you had asked me to join any call at 6:30, I would have flatly said no because I don't see 6 a.m. in the morning ever, ever. If you ask me to come at call midnight, I have no problem with that. 6
Come
a.m.
on,
Nada.
think of your alumni, Vish. Come on, give back. 6:30 in the morning.
And the last
Breathe
thing
is
I
there, a man with soul so dead who never said, "This is my own native land." Come on.
And the last thing I want to announce is we have this College of Engineering Global Alumni Meet that is scheduled for January 3rd and 4th of 2025. This is our fourth time we are doing Alumni Meet where we invite people from all batches to come to the campus. It's a 2 day event this time. I'm not part of the organizing committee this time because I won't be there during the event. I'm actually in Sabrimala at the time. So that's why I didn't want to volunteer. But lots of very good volunteers are putting together an excellent program. We have many panel discussions, etc. All that. They also have an open house, people to go and visit the departments, which they can go and see what's going on there. There's also a networking dinner they arrange there, etc. All that. So cgam.org is the website. I would request all of you to go and look and register because they are looking for people to register for the event. We are looking for 1,000 people to come to the event, January 3rd and January 4th, 2025. So with that, thank you again, Janaki, and thank you all of you for joining. If you guys have any feedback about the program, obviously we are trying to improve the program every time. Please do write to us. You can go to cgconnect.com and put your comments there, or you can write to my LinkedIn address and I can get back to you on that. Thank you so much and have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you
Thank
are.
you. My
Thanks.
pleasure. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.